Some viewers may find this disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to my channel. For my new subscribers, because I do have a lot of you guys, you are the most welcome. My name is Yaira. My co-workers and friends call me Yaya, and you're more than welcome to call me that as well. Over here on this channel, it's a good time. We do mindfulness, movies, some productivity, not the toxic kind, and culture, specifically Cameroonian and African culture. Now, today's video is long overdue, like 3 years overdue. It's a sequel to my 2019 video about Cameroonian superstitious beliefs. I will link it below and at the top right corner of the screen and at the end screen of this video. Now, fair warning, I would say the content of this video is much spookier than the first one, which is why it was originally scheduled for Halloween, like 4 months ago. And when that didn't happen, I pushed it to Friday, January 13th. That obviously didn't happen, and so here we are. The video is quite long, which is why I have been postponing it, but no more. And now that I have come clean, get some snacks, a beverage, and get comfortable, and let's jump right into this video. The first superstition on my list today was inspired by these videos I have seen going around YouTube about twins, the silent twins. By the way, Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri in both Black Panther movies, is in a movie adaptation about these twins. In CHINUA ACHEBE'S Things Fall Apart, which I do have a video on, please do check it out. He mentioned how twins were considered evil or regarded as a bad omen, a disruption of the natural order. And so if a woman were to give birth to twins in Umofia, a fictional village in the book, the twins were sent to the evil forest to die. Now, CHINUA ACHEBE was Igbo, the most popular and influential tribe in Nigeria. And so it stands to reason that he would include that in his book. Now, the Yoruba, another major ethnic group in Nigeria, view twins as quite the opposite. They view twins as a blessing, supernatural beings even. Now this I find fascinating. Same country, two of the largest ethnic groups have polar opposite beliefs about twins. Now back to the silent twins I mentioned earlier. In case you haven't seen the trailer to the movie entitled The Silent Twins, starring Letitia Wright, or the videos about them circulating these here YouTube streets, specifically the murder mystery / true crime sector, which I don't know why. Here's a brief overview. June and Jennifer Gibbons were identical twins and daughters of Caribbean immigrants who moved to the UK from Barbados in the 1960s. Not only were June and Jennifer Gibbons the only black kids in their school, but they also had a slight speech impediment, making it difficult for others to understand them. And as a result, they were ostracized, which not only made them more recluse, but also strengthened their bond and unwillingness to communicate with others except each other. They became so close that they started moving in sync and were unable to do anything without each other, which ironically became a burden for both of them. So much so that they couldn't survive as individuals while they were both alive. The sisters both agreed that one of them had to die in order for the other to live a normal life. Jennifer died, and June reportedly flourished after her sister's death. I will link that documentary down below if you want to check it out. Now, it is clear from this story that the sisters may have had a disability or were neurodivergent, but the videos I had watched about this story made the sisters out to be supernatural or have some dealings with the occult, with titles like The Haunting Case of the Silent Twins, The Chilling Story of the Silent Twins, The Terrifying Case of the Silent Twins, The Horrifying True Story Behind the Silent Twins. Curious and strange this case may have been, Sad even, but not terrifying. They probably both each wanted your own space at certain times, but were so dependent on each other that they could not function apart. I would be annoyed too. It's called sibling rivalry. What's so terrifying about that? In any case, it was these titles which in fact piqued my interest and made me draw a parallel between this case and superstitious beliefs about twins, specifically in West Africa. See how I did that? Brought that back full circle. Anyway, I've always found twins fascinating. Kakra and Penyin, as they are called in Twi, the local language of Accra, Ghana, or le gros et le petit, French for the big one and the little one. We actually had neighbors who were called exactly that when I was growing up. It's the looking exactly like someone else who is the same age as you. For me, I even wished I was a twin when I was younger, so much so that the main characters of a story I had once written were twins. And you know, me wishing I was a twin wasn't so far-fetched. It runs in the family. I have cousins who are twins on both sides. I also have half-siblings who are twins. Now, I eventually grew out of my wishing to be a twin phase. I like having an older brother. Now, much like the Yorubas, the Bamiléké people of Western Cameroon believe that twins possess special powers in a good way. They are said to bring happiness to the household and can cure dislocations and fractures through massages. This actually reminds me of a cartoon from my childhood about fraternal twins, Jules and Julie, who had powers. And since we are talking about the Bamiléké people, I saw a mini documentary here on YouTube about Erykah Badu and how she traced her ancestral roots back to Cameroon, specifically the Bamiléké tribe. Blair Underwood, remember him from Asunder? Well, he traced his ancestry back to the northwest of Cameroon. The northwest and western regions of Cameroon have similar traditional outfits, which is no surprise as they are both from the grasslands and share historical and political similarities. I will have a separate video about notable Cameroonians coming up soon. The only thing that had spooked me about twins happened when I was in boarding school. I attended an all-girls Catholic boarding school for 3 years prior to coming to the US. I do have several videos coming up about my boarding school experiences, which I now appreciate as an adult. But I digress. It was in my second year at this boarding school that I had this spooky encounter, for lack of a better word. Now, I must have been headed back to class for prep, which is basically study hall. It was dark, that I remember. I crossed paths with one of the first years. We'll call her Alice. Now, Alice told me unprompted that she had been at the shower side talking with her sister. I thought nothing of it, as I didn't really know her. She was not in my dorm. It was later on that someone told me that Alice's twin had passed away prior to Alice coming to the school. Alice, of course, confirmed with pictures from the funeral and was unfazed. She wasn't exactly unbothered, but she also didn't seem like she was crying herself to sleep every night. I'm sure she missed her sister. I mean, she did bring the pictures of the funeral with her to school. Now looking back, I wished I would have asked her more questions about her relationship with her sister and what happened to her. But I could not get past her talking with her dead sister at the shower side. Moving on to the next superstitious belief. Mirrors, not the common one about breaking a mirror and bad luck following. In true Yaya fashion, I have to connect this superstitious belief to pop culture. 2005's The Skeleton Key starring Kate Hudson made me realize that this thing with mirrors wasn't specific to West Africa. The short synopsis of the movie is, this young lady takes up a well-paying job taking care of an elderly couple and discovers that for one, the house has no mirrors in it, and for two, the man of the house is unable to speak. Curious as she is, she goes snooping around, and of course, it lands her in trouble. I highly recommend watching this movie if you haven't. I will say this movie and Get Out are kind of similar, and once you watch the movie, you will understand why. When I lived in Orlando, I had a bathroom in my room, an ensuite it's called. I find this interesting because in French, Ensuite means next, depending on the context, I guess. Anyway, I could see myself in the bathroom mirror while sitting on my bed. And so I would shut the bathroom door every night before going to sleep. I was low-key scared of seeing myself in the mirror in the dark when tossing around in my bed. Sounds ridiculous, I know. How can I see myself in the dark? Or why can't I just move my bed? Well, I had my bed set up that way to create more space in my room. Anyhow, I say all this to say, the fear of mirrors is deeply rooted in superstitious and ghost stories my mom used to tell me when I was younger, which usually included, you guessed it, mirrors. Now, this next anecdote will sound very familiar if you've seen Candyman. You know that urban legend of saying his name 5 times as you look in the mirror and him appearing and killing you with his hook of a hand. So when I was in class 2 or 3, so 2nd or 3rd grade, one of my classmates randomly asked me if I wanted more toys. My response to her was that
I already had toys.
And she goes,
But do you want more toys?
I said,
Yes, of course.
And she goes,
Well then, when you go home, go to your bathroom at 6 p.m.
Or maybe it was 7 p.m. And she said to
Keep the lights off. Make sure it was completely dark.
And that I was all alone.
And then spin around 6 times. And some lady will appear in the mirror.
And then I can ask her for whatever my heart desires. And she will provide. Girl, when I say I was freaked out, but that didn't prevent me from trying it out when I got home. And I know you're waiting for me to say what happened. Well, the mirror I used was a fake plastic doll mirror. Not glass, and there was light streaming into the bathroom from outside. So that's probably why it didn't work, and I'm actually glad it did not. I don't even know what possessed me to try that out. An article I found gave reasons why one shouldn't sleep with a mirror by or in front of the bed, and none of them seem superstitious to me. Creating sleeplessness and depleting personal energy were among the reasons given why sleeping with a mirror in front of the bed isn't a good move. I will link the article below as well as other articles I referenced for this body of work. Now, I remember watching an episode of a show on the Animal Planet called The Haunted, where the mirror served as a portal for a spirit or spirits to exit the house they were haunting. Hence my mother's stories of ghosts involving mirrors. In some tribes in Nigeria, according to this article, which again I will link below, babies should not look or be carried in front of a mirror because it is believed that they might remember your past lives or that your souls may get trapped. And if you're still here with me, you are a real one. And in fact, please drop a mirror emoji in the comment section if you're watching this on YouTube. I will have this episode on my podcast as well. On to owls, wise birds this side of the hemisphere. In Africa, them things are called witch birds. It could be because they fly at night. Some of them have yellow eyes and you're able to rotate your necks around 270 degrees. Some exorcist. Now, I happen to think owls are cute, and I have seen owls in the daytime when I lived in Florida. When I was younger though, I feared owls. I remember there was this story circulating about a little girl who was a witch and could turn into a bird and fly around at night. One evening I was outside and a bird, I believe it was an owl, flew over me and I believe it hooted. And I started screaming and saying, "Witch bird, witch bird." And my mom rushed outside to see what the hell was going on. I was so scared this thing was going to swoop down and pick me up and take me away. It wasn't until Harry Potter that I started fearing owls less. And in fact, the way witchcraft was portrayed in the Harry Potter books wasn't as scary as African witchcraft stories. It was cool, and I wanted a spell book and a wand. Sidebar, I did take that Harry Potter test. You know, the one that determines what house I would be placed in based on my response. And guys, I was placed in Slytherin. Oh, I have not taken the Harry Potter, house personality test or whatever that shit is. What do you know? I always viewed myself as a Gryffindor or Ravenclaw type of gal. But anyway, moving on from Harry Potter, but still talking about witchcraft, is this one Nigerian movie called Karashika, Queen of Demons. That movie used to terrify me. I would classify it as a Nigerian classic. Next, superstitious belief. Toe and fingernails and shed hair were to be flushed down a toilet and not just tossed in the garbage. It was believed that anyone with bad intentions could dig up your hair or your nails out of the garbage and then use it for juju or magic. You know, like placing a hex on you, like hoodoo. Alright, huge trigger warning for this next one. It's the fear of albino people. Albinism is the absence of pigment in the skin and hair. I remember seeing on TV when I was younger, albino people recounting their experiences of being ostracized in their communities because they didn't have any pigment. Some people even believed that certain body parts of albinos possessed magical powers. This, of course, unfortunately led to albinos being unalived and then their body parts being used in rituals. Just barbaric. International advocacy campaigns by human rights organizations and the United Nations aim to raise awareness about the threats faced by albinos worldwide. An article which I will link below reads, "These campaigns focus on influencing and instituting effective policy and protective frameworks at national levels, but it is difficult to institute interventions for what can be described as a silent crime. Albino trafficking and killing occur in places where government services are often absent or ineffective. There is also less advocacy at these local levels due to traditions, customs, and superstitions, leaving robust crime networks to operate unfettered. The National Anti-Trafficking in Persons Plan of Action 2021 through 2024, launched in March, is a commitment in the right direction. However, an additional and urgent focus is specific legislation on organ trafficking that will support its 2008 Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act in Tanzania. And Tanzania is not alone. Countries across the East and Southern African regions are necessary partners in the detection and prosecution of crimes in their own countries and in the cross-border trade in people with albinism." End quote. Again, I will of course link these articles down below and others I have referenced in case you want to check them out. Next, belief. Now, I heard this one from one of my Nigerian classmates in high school. He said that whenever the sun was shining and rain was falling at the same time, it meant that a lion was giving birth. Now, this one other lady I had worked with at Disney at one point, she said that where she was from, and I believe she was from the South, that if the rain is falling and the sun is shining at the same time, it meant that the devil was beating his wife. Last but certainly not least. Now, this one isn't really a superstition. This was a rumor circulating for about a month when I was younger. All men, or people with penises, were warned not to give anybody they did not know a handshake. Why? Because there had been reports of men's penises allegedly disappearing whenever they shook somebody's hand. The whole thing was ridiculous to me because how does one pee without a, that's all I have for you guys today. If you stayed all the way to the end, I thank you. And please give this a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. And speaking of superstitions, my nose has been itching for the last 10 minutes. What could that mean? Anyway, in the comment section, I would like to know, were these superstitions I mentioned brand new to you? What are some superstitions from your country or hometown? Let's chat. And also, please check out my other superstitious beliefs video from 3 years ago. I will link it below. I will also link some of my other Cameroon videos if you want to keep this party going. And I will see you sometime next week. Bye for now.